We're hearing the word about how one city is allowing Uber drivers to unionize. That seems rather foolish and rather against the idea of Uber as a decentralized provider of rides in the marketplace, because the idea of a union, is about centralization. There was a story at FEE, which is the Free Enterprise, the Foundation for Economic Education, the other day, from the Manhattan Institute, and a writer named Jared Meyer points out that the sharing economy of which Uber is a part, the sharing economy is putting into the background the need for state regulation in the first place. Here in Chattanooga, there was an ordinance passed that allowed for Uber to operate without trying to fit it into the taxi paradigm. And that is, I think, as I'm recalling now, more or less a free market understanding of that mode of business. And the idea of sharing, though, allows for all kinds of things to take place that weren't possible before when you had a centralized system. For example, Airbnb allows for people to rent rooms in their house or rent their whole houses for periods to strangers who are not strangers in a way, because they're part of the Airbnb network. Providers of rooms and buildings and temporary domiciles sign in, and so do people who want to live not to spend time in hotels and motels, but live in people's private houses when they are visiting or traveling. And so those are the consumers, right? The buyers. And so you have a sharing economy, and you have a blow, in many ways, a blow against the centralized system of the hotel industry, right? The industry that has large capital outlays in buildings that are commercial buildings, and Airbnb customers and providers are operating privately. And there's a suit going on in Nashville that seeks to prevent the city's ordinance from putting a cap on the number of dwellings, in particular in districts, from being members of Airbnb. And that, again, that ordinance an attack on the free market. Well, Jared Meyer says that with the sharing economy, when people rate one another, there is a loss of raison d'être, a loss of reason for regulation by the state and its agencies at the state level, all the way down through the county and city corporation level. He says, even with this monumental shift in the economy, regulators continue to operate as if Yelp, Google reviews, and Angie's List do not exist. Regulators inspect restaurants for health violations, but when was the last time someone looking for a place to have dinner went to the government website to see a restaurant's food safety inspection results? A much easier and more reliable way to pre-evaluate a restaurant is by going online to see what other diners thought of their experience. And negative reviews by diners for a restaurant can be far worse for business, and far more goosing of one's impulse to prosper than a negative review by a health inspector. So health inspectors matter less than good reviews. And certainly, if you notice the Chipotle crisis in the past couple of weeks, restaurateurs have every interest in having uber clean food preparation areas and food kept at the right temperatures and cooked properly. For a business to get a negative review, that is punishment as great, he says, or greater than a negative report from a regulator. For this reason, the user-generated content that populates review sites and social media is referred to by the author and host of the Small Business Advocate radio show, Jim Blasingame, as word of mouth on steroids. And that's what's happening. And so we need to have less and less with reviews on hand, regulation of the marketplace and people within the marketplace. He says the writer, again, this is FEE, Free Enterprise, what is it now? The Foundation for Economic Education, publishes the Freeman magazine for many years and still does. And I think it's digital and also hard copy. Net neutrality and other regulations on internet companies are, of course, promulgated in the name of consumer protection, threaten to unravel the increased access to information brought about by the peer-to-peer economy. And that's the word I think is valuable, peer-to-peer. Policymakers are regulating in search of a problem that is simply not there. Peer-to-peer means that the marketplace decides. Marketplace feedback matters more than regulatory oversight, regulatory permissions, and regulatory approvals and disapprovals in the process of ostensibly protecting the public. Right? There's a public safety interest that is offered by state regulators at every turn, and sometimes there's very little public safety substance to the claim of authority. Well, this is David Tulis. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and I hope we can think about the Fed raising its interest rates. Maybe Wednesday there'll be some report coming out of the central bank. And we want to see what that means. I think what is the necessity of interest rates finally being not suppressed artificially as they have been by the central bank, which is a kind of economic manager that was never intended in its charter to be what it is today, which is the kind of the overseer of the economy. The central bank, when it was founded, was supposed to be the banker's bank and to prevent the boom and bust cycle, which of course it is responsible for repeated recessions and inflations since its founding in 1914. We've been in an artificial boom for the past 7 years since the meltdown of 2008. And the boom that we're in now, the rise in nominal valuations in the market, the equities market, are probably mostly inflation from two sources, two fountains. One is the central bank, and the other is the only industry in the world that can make money from nothing, and yet needed under President Bush a bailout of $900 billion because taxpayers had to support this struggling industry. The only one in the world that can make money, make credit, make material that presents itself as money from nothing, ex nihilo, right? From absolutely nothing in the fractional reserve lending process. And it is a mystery how that works, I know. And because we have not abolished banks yet, we will be subject to repeated ruination by them. And there's one just ahead. And I don't know that the trumpeted rise of interest rates will be the trigger to set about the market into new realism. Probably not. There'll probably be some flapping bird wing somewhere on a ledge off of Wall Street that sends a current of air across the street that does something that causes something else to work, and someone gets a bad idea in a building somewhere on account of that alteration of currents and some slight change in the electrical field around that office, and something happens, right? That's the black swan event. Maybe that's something like that. And then some disaster happens, some slight spark, insignificant when it happens, will be shown later to have been the cause of the avalanche, the down rush in confidence. Now, we have confidence in the national economy because our whole economy is a kind of a confidence game. And keeping it aloft is the necessity for inflation. And there's a story in the Wall Street Journal yesterday morning on page 1 that talks about, you might wonder about it. The headline is "The Mystery of Missing Inflation Weighs on Fed Rate Move." And so we have this program of inflation. And the question is, where is inflation? Well, now, it's the article by a writer named Josh Zumbrun is misleading in many ways. It offers a kind of establishment argument of what's happening, and weighs of all the people it quotes, it weighs back and forth how we are to understand where this inflation has gone. And of course, inflation is there. It's just that it's not being registered in retail prices. And the goal of the Fed, according to the Wall Street Journal, is to have a target of 2% of inflation. That means, here's what that means, that your buying power shrivels by 2%. a year. That your dollar at the end of the year, here you are in December, your dollar is now worth and buys what 98 cents worth of goods and services. That there has to be a necessary debasement of your buying power every year, 2% per annum. That's the target. And what's happening though is that your buying power is not shriveling as fast as it's supposed to. And there's concern among central bankers around the world that their machinations are not savaging the saver and savaging the buyer, the consumer. That would be you. For example, the story points out that let's see, that in mentioning prices. The price of a 4th of July barbecue, for example, closely tracked the 2% annual target over that period. That's 1992 to 2007. Average prices for a pound of ground beef went from $2.70 from $1.91. Cheese climbed to $3.91 a pound from $3 and a penny, and a 16-pound bag of potato chips rose to $3.65 from $2.84. Wages also rose modestly. So workers kept pace. So that, again, the problem is that elsewhere in the world there's been very low inflation. The Eurozone has an inflation rate of 0.1%, so 1/10 of 1%. Even though the ECB, the European Central Bank, has been pumping up billions and billions of euros into the economy, into the banking sector, and probably it's having a lot of lenders are keeping their reserves with the central bank. Not sure what the meaning of that might be, but inflation in the UK is minus 0.1. So in other words, there's a deflation. The euro, the pound is becoming slightly more valuable, and growth of 2.3% over the same period. Japan 0.3 inflation and 1.1% growth, and the U.S. 0.2 inflation and 2.2% growth. Now those are confusing. I think there's a lot of intentional confusion in here. Growth, the economic growth, when thought of in a monetary sense, means that the money supply is expanded here in this country 2.2%. Well, that means that there's new money being created. Not that we're more productive, not that you are more productive, that your sector is creating new value. That's not what's happening. It's that there's more money being lent into existence. And so inflation is 0.2%. It should be 2.2%, right? Because it should track with so-called economic growth. Economic growth is a kind of euphemism for inflation. Inflation is purely a monetary event. It doesn't come about because labor is paid more or paid less, or because factories are more or less productive. Those are not inflationary. Oil prices being up or down are not inflationary. Lower oil prices don't cause inflation. Okay, even though the story suggests that these marketplace functions touch inflation. They don't touch inflation. They do touch prices, but inflation is a purely monetary event. So this story confuses this whole matter, and so I read it and I'm just bewildered that that the EU is bemoaning 0.1 inflation, and because the story hides what I think is supposed to be hidden from us, and that is that the good people and their central banks have destroyed the economy, and they're in the process of destroying it. They are effectively strip mining the economy, and inflation is, of course, the essential shovel, the essential mass excavator in that strip mining process, because what it does is that it takes your value from you a little bit every day. Now, they would like to take more of your buying power than they are now, so that their system will maintain equilibrium. And they think that they have to raise interest rates to stop the creation of new dollars. When you have low inflation, as we've had, you have gigantic so-called investments, gigantic borrowing schemes, which creates factories, new businesses, all kinds of people get money to start businesses, to buy things, to consume things. And when you have low interest rates, you should have higher inflation. But the problem is we're not having it, right? We have very low interest rates, which should generate high inflation rates, but we don't have that. So where has the inflation gone? Where has all this new money gone? And will it suddenly appear? And when it suddenly appears, what will happen to the way people see things? Well, I think there's a real shock ahead. And my name is David Tulis, and we are skeptical of the good people. We're skeptical of national narratives, even if they take. I'm showing for my viewer on YouTube at our YouTube channel. I'm showing the jump page of this rather long article about the mystery of the missing inflation weighs on the Fed's rate move. Well, that's a lot of type, and we have people who are not able to tell us what's happening. I think you have to go to the alternative press, you have to go to the libertarian, the hard money press to find out. People such as David Stockman, to find out what is really happening and what the dangers are. Largely, the overall analysis is that the party's about to end. So globally, there's going to be gigantic disappointment as the liquor is going to be pulled off the table, and the sugar. We've all been hopped up on sugar the past 7 or 8 years, and that is going to be withdrawn as well. So where are we going to get our energy if we don't have this cheap credit? Where will our strength come from? There is I was going to mention One Stop Package to change the subject, right? One Stop Package, which is a liquor store this is, wine, liquor, and beer. These are easily understood stimulants, and you can you can get a deal on these bottles at One Stop Package's new store in South Saudi Daisy. It's right in the Sunshine Market Complex on the south part of town. It's new, so if you're a consumer and one who enjoys liquor, wine, or beer, make sure you check out One Stop Package for the best prices, a huge selection. And it's on Dayton Pike there. You can get your gas, your bread, your smokes while you're there as well, and save 10% off on a case of wine if you want to stock up if you want to prepare for the future. Stock up on with a case of wine. Also, wanted to mention that if you're out hungry today, make sure you go to Armando's in Hickson. Armando's, which is a great little restaurant. You might not have seen it. It's there by the entrance of Chester Frost Park. It's right there, to be exact, at the new Thrasher light going up on Hickson Pike. So go there. It's a local restaurant run by Anthony Johnson, a great cook, a man who has zest for life and is a great commoner, he says, but he cooks an uncommon lunch or dinner, all kinds of things on the menu: catfish, BLTs, pies, milkshakes. There are for the children. There's hot coffee as well, and many other good things. Remember, if you love local economy, love your neighbor and buy local. That's our argument here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And so about the Fed, there's a we have the stories on the story on TV3. I think it's on other outlets as well this morning about the 10-story multi-use building breaking ground on Market Street today, and it's only $28 million. I can't believe it's that inexpensive, but apparently a large building is going up by the Simpson Organization, a residential and commercial development. And it's called, the story by Natalie Potts at TV3, one of the hottest spots in downtown Chattanooga. It will become. And Kim White, the CEO of River City Company, the ubiquitous do-gooding outfit downtown that has a great deal of control. This development has been 15 years in the making. We think it's one of the most key pieces of property in the city, she says. It really provides a connection between the North Shore and the South Side. It's been vacant since 2000, and it will it's generating a meager $14,000 in tax revenue per year. And it'll bring in $300,000 a year when it's built. There'll be restaurants and a retail shopping outlet on the first floor, and then 20,000 square feet for commercial on the second, and a parking garage on the third floor. Okay, so this building will have a parking garage on floor 3, and then apartments from levels 4 through 10, according to Natalie Potts at TV3. Now, this building, like others, are built at the top of the bubble, and that means that the financing has been relatively inexpensive, and there are people in the downstream in the financing sector all making a killing because they got the money that they're lending out at 6%. They got it at 2% or 1%, and so they're trying to make a go in the world of credit, the world of fiat money. That is the ruin of every country. Fiat money is the ruin of Hungary, the ruin of Germany, the ruin of pre-revolutionary France. There's a great book by Professor White, Monetary Inflation in France, about the paper money scheme there. It has always the same operation. The methods don't change. But the victims and the victims are always the same. They're always the common people who don't quite know what's going on and who get excited in the updraft, right? They all invest in the market, right? They all buy shares in companies. Well, this is David Tulis, and make sure that you check with Superior Air Systems to have your AC and heating system checked. That's Superior 886-6602.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this cool start, expect lots of sunshine and great looking weather for your Tuesday. Highs back into the mid, maybe upper 60s. Tonight, clear, chilly, lows near 40. For Wednesday, though, mostly sunny, mild again near 67 with areas of showers rolling in Wednesday night through Thursday morning. Celebrate the holiday season with Dixieland Fireworks. Locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Cat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixie. Dixieland Fireworks open daily just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm S'mores Yeen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
CBS Radio News brought to you by Kubota. You can count on Kubota to help you get the toughest jobs done with ease, comfort, and efficiency. Whether you need a compact tractor, zero-turn mower, or diesel utility vehicle, let Kubota help you get your work done. Find your local Kubota dealer at TennesseeKubotaDealers.com.
At Kubota, there's only one thing we're selling. Great tractors.
Lay your burdens down at the woodhouse. Leave all your worries at the door. Just take some time. We're transforming life.
Happy holidays at the Wood. From the Woodhouse Day Spa. Holiday gift cards available at Chattanooga.woodhousespas.com.
You have an event coming up for the holidays, or maybe it is your daughter's wedding, or maybe just a church or office party, then you need to select Choo Choo Barbecue. That's correct, Choo Choo Barbecue. Whether you like pork, chicken, or beef, oh yes, Choo Choo Barbecue with their savory rub flavor. Oh my goodness, it's making me hungry right now. You add in their delicious smoked aroma, and you have set the table for a perfect meal with Choo Choo Barbecue. That's right, Choo Choo Barbecue. Why don't you give them a call right now? 423-843-9554. That's 843-9554. Call 423-843-9554. Choo Choo Barbecue. You know where it's located, off of Hickson Pike, right there at the Valley Brook area. Don't kid yourself. Your stomach is already on the way.
While politicians debate climate change and taking our guns, they leave America vulnerable to disaster. You need to act now to keep your family safe and prepared. Do you have an emergency plan? Do you have long-term storage food? Do you have the skills and mindset to survive a disaster? If not, what are you waiting for? Call P5 Preparedness right now, 423-602-2175. Do you honestly think the government is going to help you? If you do, you are wrong, dead wrong. Don't get caught unprepared. Let the experts at P5 Preparedness get you ready for any emergency or disaster situation. Today, we offer a wide range of classes for the beginner on how to prepare, as well as the expert prepper. We stock a wide range of supplies, including long-term storage food, water filtration, outdoor gear, tactical gear, and plate carriers. P5 Preparedness, East Brainerd Road between I-75 and Gun Barrel Road. You will see the Army Deuce and a Half truck, 423-602-2175, 1309 Panorama Drive, Chattanooga. P5Preparedness.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Republican presidential hopefuls gearing up for the final face-off of 2015. Donald Trump
reveling in the results of that new Monmouth national poll that show him with a 27-point lead over his next closest rival, 41%, compared to Ted Cruz, who sits now at 14%.
Fox's John Roberts in Las Vegas. Also on the main stage, Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, John Kasich, Carly Fiorina, Rand Paul, and Jeb Bush. Deliberations resume in the manslaughter trial of a Baltimore police officer accused of being an indifferent cop responsible for the death of Freddie Gray.
It's quiet here outside the courthouse at this hour, but the city is bracing for possible protests after the verdict. Leave is canceled for all Baltimore police officers.
Fox Radio's Rachel Sutherland. Fox News, we report. You decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
We just saw on television an attorney general talking with CNN about, I believe it's Kansas, about how Planned Parenthood destroys children and traffics in their parts. It is a bloody, bloody enterprise. And we do have here in Tennessee, we do have clinics that destroy boys and girls. They're allowed to prosper thanks to Republicans and Democrats in the executive branch who have no testosteronal constitutional courage to simply shut them down as murder factories, violating common law rights to have one's limbs and one's head kept intact from the moment of conception. That, of course, is the position of Christendom, and the one that you would say, even if you're a good humanist, that would be a mercy to extend. Planned Parenthood is not content just to mess with the heads and the hearts of children with incisors and scalpels. They mess with heads and hearts as well in a new program that's kicking off National Condom Week. That is not a current event, not a current story, but it's something that has been involved in promoting sexual activity among children. This is David Tulis, and caller, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Well, I have a couple of questions and a comment. I love the idea of National Condom Week handed out just to Democrats because, think about it. If a Democrat stops procreating, the country gets better. So, yeah, let's hand out condoms to every Democrat, the Democrat Party, and even socialists. I'd hand it out to them too. But all seriousness aside, now,
okay, go ahead.
This is why the left wins. By the way, this is why the left wins. New York is going to ignore Supreme Court decisions and executive orders and the rule of law by passing gun laws they know are restrictive, and now they want the no-fly list from the federal government. And this is why the left wins. They ignore Supreme Court decisions in the law that they don't like, but the conservatives don't. And hence, the Marriage Act and the marriage between a man and a woman. The governor should have said this is illegal and unconstitutional, and you are not going to follow it, and issue that order to every single clerk. But I'll be honest with you. Christians and Republicans against conservatives have no balls. Christ is crying right now. He had guts. He had courage. He went into the temple. What a bunch of flowery wimps. The left wins because they don't listen to laws. They don't listen to rules. They don't listen to Supreme Court decisions. They do whatever they want to do. So my question is, David, here's the question. How do you just say no and wake up this country, especially individuals that believe in the rule of law and the Constitution, to just say no?
Okay, the question is, how do we wake people up to just say no? Well, I think that it's very difficult to do. It's probably a work of Christian revival that emanates from the Christian church, where there's a fair, there could be a better teaching of the law of God and the nature of government, the nature of the civil magistrate, who has a duty to uphold God's law, to uphold the basic rules of equity and justice. The state or the king, they do not have the charge from God to bring security, but they do have a charge to bring justice. Justice comes after crimes. Security, in our modern welfare and bureaucratic understanding of it, security comes before crimes are committed, and so therefore creates the imprisoning police state. And that's what Republicans and Democrats seem to favor in some form or the other, and which we've had for some time. And in this police state, in this sort of militarized culture that we have with its public schools and regimentation at many points, there is a kind of anesthesia. And so I think for there to be an encouraging trend in favor of the marketplace, in favor of Christian liberty, and in favor of testosteronal saying no, well, that's a long process, and it is cultural, and I do think it comes from the work of the Holy Spirit in a people. And I would say that people, of course, would be God's people; those would be Christian people. And the listener may not be a Christian, and still, though, I hope you understand that you, my listener, have a stake in what happens in Christianity, though you may not have a claim in it, and make no promises to God, and have no worship of Him, and deny His jurisdiction over you. Still, you have a stake in what the people who do have that relationship say and do in the long term. And I think that though there is a revival afoot in Christendom since the 1970s in the area, kind of the rediscovery of God's law, I think that it's not really enough to save the country. I say it that way because I know a lot of people who are Christians want the country to be saved. They want to save America, to save the United States. And I don't think that that's really desirable. I think maybe it is desirable to save America, the kind of mystical ideal that we have of what that is. But I don't have an affinity for the United States per se. And, the globalists who are, the people who kind of are strip mining the country and strip mining the economy, they don't care either. However, my unconcern is quite different from theirs. Their unconcern is that they want to keep prospering through their corporations and their guilds, regardless of what happens to any particular country or nation or place. They have no affinity to place at all. They are, after all, they are globalists. They would be on the Concorde if it were still around, traveling to Paris and Brussels and New York and Los Angeles. They would be there. But we here in Chattanooga, we belong here, and we're here. So how do we bring these good things about? And I'd say that there's a lot to say for people such as those in Fremont County, Colorado. There's a website called countysecession.com/blog. It's a blog written by a writer whose name does not appear on this website, which kind of bothers me just a little bit. But it discusses how there is the idea of secession, that is to say, declaration of independence by a particular county. As I think it happened prior to the first war for American independence from, I think, Mecklenburg County. This writer mentions the separation of that county from the other colonies, and it's something that can be looked at again. But it takes a lot of nerve, and it really takes a sense of identity of the people around a concept. I would say a religious concept of to whom the greatest duty is owed, and that would be to God. Through what? Well, through the means of the church, which is the church being outside the scope of authority of the civil magistrate, but also the civil magistrate, who has a very limited scope of duty, and no welfare state, no special privileges. There would be constitutional common law rights that would reassert themselves. These are common law rights, by the way, are ones you have from God. And they've always been. Men have always had them, though, for many bleak periods in early history. Men didn't know they had them, but we've discovered them. And as I think the knowledge of God has spread across the world, men have understood that they have rights that come from God. And in late, since the Reformation, men have begun to understand how to assert them and how to assert these doctrines of liberty, doctrines, even one called the doctrine of the lesser magistrate. These are very important doctrines of liberty and prosperity. Now, just by the way, I want to mention Bruce Krebs, who is your source of prosperity. If you want to start a business, make sure you contact Bruce Krebs at Entrepreneur Source. The number is 875-5621. That's 875-5621. Get on his agenda now, and he will help get you into a business that's a franchise. That's his specialty. If you don't have an idea for your own business that looks like you and sounds like you, then buy into somebody else's plan through a franchise. That's at the Entrepreneur Source. And just keep that in mind as a real option for you. And if you need help on your numbers, there's an accountant you want to make note of. His name is Eric Pelton. Eric Pelton runs EJ Pelton Company. He's the numbers guy. The number is 622-3156. Call Eric today. He'd love to talk with you, my listener, especially if you're starting a business. You might want to have him put your feet down on the ground more effectively. He will help you do that. Just have a little consult with him about who you are and what your plans are. And he will be of service to you later as your business takes off. His number is 622-3156. This is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. We want to talk about, we want to look next at an important question that shaped our discourse here in Chattanooga, and that is liberty, the liberty of movement, and the power of religious ideals and religious systems to bring about sometimes violent actions. There are a couple of sheriffs in Tennessee who are urging that you, my listener, and people in their counties do what they may not have thought of doing before, and that is carrying a concealed weapon. The concealed carry man, the concealed carry woman, is effectively a kind of deputy, a kind of peacekeeper, especially if there is an imminent threat of a good man going on a rampage, right? A man who's had enough and who's going to kill some innocent people and then put the barrel of his gun in his mouth and blow his own brains out. That man needs to be stopped. And he's not likely to be stopped before much damage is done unless there is nearby a man of character such as you, my listener. The sheriffs are in Gibson County. His name is Paul Thomas. And in McNairy County, there is Guy Buck, apparently the first in the state who have signed a statement that's been circulated by the Tennessee Firearms Association and John Harris, the constitutional attorney who runs that organization. Sheriff Buck says, "I'm not asking anybody to go out here and become a vigilante. I'm not asking anyone to take the law into their own hands. I'm telling you, you've got the right to protect yourself." And John Harris tells a TV station that we thank citizens living throughout the state of Tennessee. We think citizens living throughout the state of Tennessee need to know whether their sheriff and elected official supports them if they're handgun permit holders or not. And handgun permit holders are sometimes badly abused, though they are licensees of the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security. We have on Nooganomics.com a nice story by Duke Cumberledge about a very favorable experience he had in Collegedale when he had dealt with a son's car accident, and the Collegedale deputy treated him with respect and didn't throw him to the ground or do anything violent or vile like that, though Duke had a weapon on his hip. An interesting account about a town that has a very bad reputation for harassing the citizens. Well, to get back to the question of this religious impulse that is the source of violence, we're thinking here, of course, of the Muslim religion founded by Muhammad, who calls himself a prophet and who claimed to have many revelations from his deity Allah by name. And we had here in July 16, just about 5 months ago, we had a massacre of 5 military people by a faithful Muslim. Muhammad Abdulaziz was a college student. His father works in the city government in the engineering department. There had been some domestic turmoil in that young man's life. He had a couple of sisters, I believe. And he took it upon himself to enter into the world of jihad, to enter into what some would say is extremist thinking, but others would say is not really extreme thinking at all, but just faithful thinking about what the deity proposed in the Koran demands of his worshippers. Now, political Islam is it is a political totalitarian ideology that has a strongly religious claim, and it is considered to be a religion, not just a political system. Of cartel capitalism and crony capitalism. This is beyond that. There's a deity that proposes to control his adherents through the three pillars of Islam. These are the Sirah, which is the accounting of Muhammad's life. It's a life full of violence and servitude and beheadings, tremendous military adventure. He was a great military man. And he kind of a disheartened religious figure whose change of tactics from preaching to warfare exponentially increased his claim upon people near him, and increasingly wider area of folk around him became his subjects and subject to his religious understanding of things and his decrees and doctrines. And finally, much of the world has been lost, if you will, to Islam. Many countries, Turkey, for example, once a Christian place with Macedonia, remember Paul was there, once a Christian place, is now almost entirely Muslim, with Christianity having been extirpated. That is to say, uprooted, rooted out as if it were a noxious weed by Islam. So what is it in Islam that brings people to jihad? Well, there's a writer here in Chattanooga, an attorney, and his name is Boyd Patterson. He's been for about the past 13 years a district attorney here in Hamilton County, and he's been involved, of course, in private practice. He's an officer of the court, and he has written a book that's just under 40 pages long, and it's called Spiritual Foundation of Islamic Terrorism. And he is raising a question. He's raising and proposing a very interesting enterprise into which he has entered with the company of Bassam Issa, who is a member of the leader of the Islamic Society of Chattanooga, of Greater Chattanooga, and a practicing Muslim. And this book came out just recently. And there was, a couple of weeks ago, an event with about 50 or 75 people attending at the public library, in which these two men discussed the passages of the Koran, which are of note, which are part of the vocabulary of the terrorists, the faithful ISIS gunman, the faithful ISIS slaveholder, the faithful Taliban member who trades slave women back and forth for cigarettes or bullets. These are all men who have their justification for their warfare out of are the commentaries. Apparently, I'm not sure how big a volume that is, but there's apparently a set number of commentaries. Together, these three volumes have about 30% devoted to jihad, devoted to war against people like you, right? You may be a Christian. You're probably not a Christian, my listener, but people like you who are simply indifferent. You're sort of material upon which the Muslim system yearns to come upon, to mold into a better, more worshipful form. For example, in the book now we have most of the book is given over to passages in the Quran which are jihad oriented. For example, God revealed his will to the angels, saying, shall be with you, give courage to the believers, I shall cast terror into the hearts of the infidels, strike off their heads, strike off the very tips of their fingers. That was because they defied God and his apostle. He that defies God and his apostle shall be sternly punished by God. And it goes on. There are many others that say things such as, fight against them until idolatry is no more and God's religion reigns supreme. And if anyone attacks you, attack him as he attacks you. Believers, retaliation is decreed for you in bloodshed. These are not pacific and calm, quiet, anodynous sort of passages, they are designed to create vitriol, to create a hatred for the so-called ungodly. Prophet, it says in 9:37, make war on the unbelievers and the hypocrites and deal rigorously with them. Hell shall be their home. Well, these sorts of passages are ones that very possibly Muhammad Abdulaziz marked with his college highlighter. He still had some left over from college days at UTC. Seek out your enemies relentlessly, maybe have been marked in red. And fighting is obligatory for you, much as you dislike it, but you may hate a thing, though it is good for you. So that may have been marked with a double red underline in Muhammad Abdulaziz's copy. We are, according to this selection by Boyd Patterson, we are friends of Satan, if we are to believe the Koran. It says, for example, and how should you not fight for the cause of God, and for the helpless old men, women, and children who say, deliver us, Lord, from this city of wrongdoers, and send forth your guardian from your presence. Send to us from your presence one that will help us. The true believers fight for the cause of God, but the infidels fight for the devil. Fight then against the friends of Satan. So as a Christian, I'm a friend of Satan. Okay, this is in the book. Now we're going to find out a little bit more about this in just a couple of minutes. We've got Boyd Patterson scheduled to be here, and also Bassam Issa. We want to hear from them. What is it that we need to know about not Sharia so much, which is the law system of the Muslim, but the war system, the impetus for invasion, the impetus for slaughter. There is a way, I think, in which we should look at Muslim terrorism. Muslim terrorism cannot be fought by military means. It cannot be defeated. Okay, no matter how much we talk about how much the good people talk about taking apart ISIS, in piece by piece, or bombing its sanctuaries and spying on its phone conversations. It can't be defeated militarily, and that's because it's not purely a military phenomenon. It is a phenomenon that we ourselves have provoked in many ways. The federal government is incessantly stoking the fires in the Middle East with occupations, wars, and drone bombings. So it is sort of asking for these crises to come here. It is asking for that. It has sort of invited this to happen, and it is not concerned about our security in the WIT. It is concerned, though, about increasing its hegemony. Hegemony is the word for authority and power. It does want to have that. It engages in these wars overseas because it has a domestic policy. These wars are part of domestic policy. They serve domestic policy. And so if we are to believe Ron Paul in his very important presentation, that you can hear that presentation at Nooganomics.com, and you can also read it. It's a 60-minute long talk he gave last Saturday or maybe last Friday, and he says that the neoconservatives who run the government, who sort of have the government in their back pocket, they need to have terrorism. Terrorism is part of what they want to have. They longed for a terrorist attack on our country, and in fact proposed it in a paper making reference to the Pearl Harbor type event that President Bush finally grabbed with the 9/11 attack, and used for the marked expansion of the new imperial project. And that is, of course, to have an American presence in these Muslim countries, and our biggest ally supplied the men who are purportedly part of the 9/11 crew, and we are today at war with a very moderate Muslim power, Syria. We are trying to overthrow a westernized, secularized dictator, Bashar al-Assad, and he somehow is not cooperating with our plans, and so he has to go. And so we are engaging, we the Americans, or should I say they, right? It's not we, it's really they. They are friendly types in prosecuting their insurrection against this governing authority in that country. Well, my name is David Tulis. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We suggest that you love your neighbor and buy local. Near is better than far. Small is better than big. Simple than complex. And in the footnotes, personal is better than corporate. And physical is better than abstract.
After this cool start, expect lots of sunshine and great looking weather for your Tuesday. Highs back into the mid, maybe upper 60s. Tonight, clear, chilly, lows near 40. For Wednesday, though, mostly sunny, mild again near 67 with areas of showers rolling in Wednesday night through Thursday morning. Celebrate the holiday season with Dixieland Fireworks, locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Cat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixie. Dixieland Fireworks open daily just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm S'mores Gene 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Rick Davis total store sale. Gold, silver, bracelets, rings, diamonds. Rick Davis pays you cash personally. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis has got the cash and incredible deals at 50, 60, and 70% off Rick Davis on Brainerd Road near Eastgate Town Center.
Do I sound like a guy who loves to eat? Yeah. You too? Guess what? I cook the meanest hamburger in Hickson at my little restaurant, Armando's at Chester Frost Park. That's it. Right by the entrance to Chester Frost Park on Hickson Pike. I'd like you to come by and let me cook you dinner too. Bring your family, kids, friends. Lunch for common folk, just not the common lunch. Yeah, we're perfect for lunch. And dinner too. Meat guy? Yeah. Potatoes? Yeah. Catfish, BLTs, pecan pie, hot cup of coffee or ice cold sweet tea. Armando's, that's us. Go on by 11 to 9, Monday through Saturday, right outside the entrance to Chester Frost Park, across